So Ruth, we know that an increasing number of organisations are applying to the Home Office for a sponsor licence. The latest statistics are that 57,000 organisations hold a licence or did at the end of last year. If an organisation is thinking about applying for a licence, what is the Home Office going to be looking for? What does the organisation need to be thinking about?
So exactly, this is the first thing that organisations need to be thinking of when they're looking to apply is what exactly the Home Office are looking for. So there are a number of things that the Home Office will assess within the application. Firstly, they want to see that the organisation is a genuine organisation operating lawfully in the UK. This is demonstrated by providing a number of supporting documents. They also want to see that the organisation is honest and dependable and not involved in behaviour that's not conducive to public good. This is partly looked at by looking at the backgrounds of the key personnel who will be nominated onto the licence, but also the practices of the organisation themselves. So, for example, looking at things like any civil penalties for illegal working. They also want to make sure that an organisation will have the systems in place to actually be able to keep up with the number of sponsored duties that come with having a sponsor licence. So looking at HR practices, things like that. And finally, they need to be sure that the organisation meets the route-specific requirements. So for example, if that's a skilled worker, can they offer employment that meets the skills and salary thresholds for that route?
So if an organisation is thinking about making the application, what should they be doing to prepare for that?
So it's important for them to look at their HR practices. So the Home Office, when they're looking at the application, will want to see that there's sufficient systems in place for a number of things that will help them keep up with their sponsored duties. So for example, do they have the systems in place where they can record data about their sponsored workers, so keep records on file, make sure that they're not absent from work for longer than they're permitted to be, and also, is the organisation carrying out appropriate right to work checks? That's a really big thing that the Home Office will look at. Are they able to track expiry dates of people's visas and keep on top of things? So it's making sure that you're confident that you have those practices in place to make sure that you can actually meet the sponsored duties should the licence be granted.
And what about documents then? What do you need to be thinking about in terms of putting together the documents the Home Office is going to want to see as part of the application?
So in general, an organisation would be expected to provide at least 4 documents as part of the application to demonstrate that they're this genuine organisation operating lawfully. There are a range of different documents that you can choose from, things like VAT certificates showing that you have employees' liability insurance. There's a range of options. For some organisations, some of these documents will be mandatory. So for example, for a startup, a new organisation, you have to show that you have a business bank account in the UK, or if you're registered or regulated by a body such as the FCA, you have to demonstrate that. You also have to demonstrate the hierarchy of that organisation, so providing a hierarchy chart. And there are a number of additional details about the organisation that you have to provide that you can't put into the application form, so we do advise to go in a cover letter along with the documents. It's slightly different for an application for a Global Business Mobility Senior or Specialist Worker licence, because as well as the documents we've just discussed, you also have to provide evidence that you're linked by common ownership or control or by joint venture to an overseas organisation.
So what about timescales then? If an organisation puts in an application for a sponsor licence, how quickly can it expect to have the licence in hand?
So it's not necessarily a quick process. In the first instance, we'd always recommend at least a month lead-in time. As we just mentioned, there are a number of documents and bits of information that you have to have prepared before the application is submitted. So you do need a bit of time to prepare that. Once the online application form has gone in, once that's submitted and the fees have been paid, there's a 5-day time frame which you have to send off those supporting documents. So again, that's why it's so important to have those ready before the application's actually submitted. When the documents and everything is in with the Home Office, the standard processing time can be up to 10 weeks. which obviously if there's an immediate need is not ideal for some organisations. But there is a priority service that you can pay an additional £500 for, and that expedites the process into within 10 working days.
And what about the cost for all this then? Presumably it's not free and the organisation is going to have to pay something towards the licence.
Yeah, so there are costs at the time that you apply for the licence, and then there are also some costs that apply at the time you actually sponsor an individual worker. These costs vary, and one principal difference is between organisations that are considered small and those that are considered large under the Companies Act 2006 definition. So for example, when you apply for the sponsor licence, there's a one-off licence fee. So for example, for a small organisation, the one-off licence fee is £536 currently, whereas for a large organisation, this is £1,476 currently. Again, there's different fees payable when you want to sponsor a worker. There's an immigration skills charge that applies, which is a fee that has to be paid per year that you're sponsoring that worker. There's a certificate of sponsorship fee of £199 for some workers. For example, that doesn't apply if you're sponsoring an EU national. And then when the individual actually makes their visa application, there are again some costs linked to that. If you'd like any further information on the points that we've discussed, please feel free to contact myself or Shabana on the contact details that you can see on your screen, or you can find our details on the Walker Morris website.